I got some notes prepared for the 13th. That's, I've got my argument reasonably in my head anyway. So.
Okay. Okay, and
Apologies about the mic. I have, as you can see, I've got a room full of mics. Time zones all over the world. We've only got a couple of hours. I haven't shouted out the world. We've only got a couple of hours. Waiting for you to turn up. But because of what I've witnessed from you, yeah, I am honestly. I know because of how I've witnessed from you. I don't know what people have told you about honestly. I know I'm as polite as they come, Mark, and I know you to be. I've witnessed your debating style, and I've heard you ridicule your own debate partners for them calling other people stupid idiots and stuff like that. It's not your scene, right? Yeah, it's not what you do. So
well, I wouldn't say
an
ridicule.
engagement with someone like you.
Yeah, I wouldn't say ridicule. I think that I expect a level of professionalism from interlocutors,
Yes.
sort of the ability to sort of say, okay, we may disagree on all kinds of things, but we can at least be professional and not sort of chest beat or say that, you know, make these sweeping statements. But you've sort of said, well, I'm going to run away. So you know, this is obviously spur of the moment stuff that I've just come on to say, hey, I'm in for the debate. If you don't need a moderator, that's fine. I usually don't. However, I do like one, but that's usually because of my opponent. And so I'm here now. So do you want to introduce? Because I've already started my stream, and I'll just check that we're live. Cool. Yeah, I'm live.
One of my Lizard would mod for us as well. He's just turned up. But
okay, hello, Lizard.
There's probably no need. There's probably no need now. Lizard, if you feel like any of us are talking over each other or taking the piss, we've both agreed to 5 minutes each opening, or within 10 minutes opening, little introduction to and fro, and then, you know, if you feel any of us are taking the piss, feel free to mod us accordingly. But yeah, do you want me to start, Mark?
Well, if you want to introduce...
Sure, no problem.
If you want to introduce the show and everything, go for it. I'm
sure. Can I just ask one favour? Can you turn up your volume or come closer to your mic or something? You're only hitting about 30, 35 decibels. I need you to be hitting about 15. Right. How do you do, Mark's audience? And obviously my audience know who I am. I've recently encountered Mark through the Raging Tomatoes channel on a debate. Her channel came into my feed recently because I'm a YouTuber, but I'm trying to leave YouTube. But nevertheless, her channel came into my feed recently, and it was a debate with Mark on it about, is God real? Because as a follower of the Christ, I obviously know of God's existence, etc., etc. And I've heard some claims made by Mark on that channel, which I wish to challenge him upon. So I asked him politely and kindly if he would accept the debate with me. We've tried to set it up in emails. It was getting a bit tedious, and we decided just to scrap all that and do it now. And I give Mark my full gratitude for doing that. He's a honourable man. But let me just... the initial claim that Mark made was when someone asked him, is God the creator or a creator logical? And he said, wow, just because it was logical, I'm paraphrasing, feel free to interrupt me or correct me when it's your turn, Mark. But he said, like, even if something is logical like a unicorn, that doesn't mean I have to believe in it. Granted, he doesn't. But when we're talking about logical, the philosophy of logic, right, yeah, one's beliefs or feelings are unnecessary. They're not even involved in the equation. So under the philosophy of logic, right, yeah, the principle of non-contradiction dictates that if something is logical, and it's illogical to claim otherwise, or to have, or to make a stance that dictates otherwise. So God the creator is logical, right, yeah, just as much as like any other theory. And therefore, to take the stance that God does not exist or to deny God's existence is an illogical stance. So, fair enough. Mark might have his opinion that, or his beliefs that God doesn't exist. But that's irrelevant to the logical equation. If God is logical, then it's illogical to claim otherwise. And secondly, he claims to be an atheist, Mark does, right? Yeah. And an atheist, right? Yeah, is not an agnostic. An agnostic will believe in God if it's proven to them. They're not going to go out their way to deny the existence of anything, right? Yeah, because they're not sure what we are, what's going on in the world. But if something is proven to them categorically, they're willing to like take the next step into, you know, entertaining it. And that's the most logical position. The atheist goes out of their way, when there's no obligation to believe in God in the first place, to deny the existence of God, which shifts the burden of proof onto their shoulders. It turns their claim into the positive claim. The atheist's claim is, right, yeah, that there are enough known facts in the universe, scientifically or otherwise, to deny the existence of God. That's why when an atheist comes up to a God-fearing man like me and says, prove to me God exists, there's no obligation for you to believe in God in the first place. Right, yeah? And if you're saying God doesn't exist because nobody can prove it to you, right, yeah, then that's an affirmative position. It's not a defensive position. It's one where the burden of proof falls upon their shoulders. Now, I believe Mark to be intertwining agnosticism, or the philosophy of the agnostic, with atheism, and they are compatible somewhat. However, atheism shifts the burden of proof onto its shoulders, whereas agnosticism doesn't. And to merge the two is easily defeated, because one's the most intellectual compared to the other, right? Yeah, and that's the agnostic position. But when they are merged together, it's like having your cake and eating it. It's like they are asserting some sort of God doesn't exist because no one can prove it to me. And if you can prove it to me, I might be willing to believe in it, which is not the strict atheist position. The atheist position is like a brain in a jar. Even if some sort of evidence or proof was shown to them, they'd be like, wow, that's just some trick of the mind, neuros, like convincing them of, you could still be a brain in a jar with all this being explained to them somewhere else. Right, yeah, there will always be another reason why what evidence or proof shown to the atheist will be denied. So you can't prove God exists to the atheist, right? Yeah, and like God's existence is proven to the individual. I am satisfied God exists, and I have no inclination to prove God exists to anybody else, right? Yeah. Secondly, well, in this equation, in accordance with doctrine, no man can know the mind of God. Logic is a tool of mankind. It's illogical or fallacious to attempt to use logic to either prove or deny the existence of God. God is operating in a realm, the creator, beyond reason and logic. And I admit, gracefully, logic is the greatest tool mankind has to deal with the immediate, with each other, commerce, business, in an amicable way, as not to lead to physical violence. It's a brilliant tool to plan for the immediate and the future, and to analyze the past. But it was never designed to reason or logic. It was never designed to be a tool as a way to answer or an explanation for everything. It's unreasonable to do so. Yeah? If you are attempting to use logic to explain the meaning of everything, you're using logic illogically, and you're being unreasonable. And that's pretty much my opening statement, right? Yeah, I've pulled Mark up because he claimed that in a debate with somebody, right? Yeah, he claimed that even when questioned, even if God the Creator is logical, it's still okay for him not to believe in it. Granted, but one's beliefs and feelings do not come into a logical equation; they're separated from it. An appeal to emotion, right? Yeah, has no standing within the field of logic, and beliefs fall under an appeal to emotion, right? And I admit, it would be very difficult for me to prove that God exists to an atheist. There's no need to. right? Yeah, because the atheist is denying God's existence and assuming the positive claim. So the emphasis and burden of proof falls on the atheist's shoulders to show how there are enough known facts in the known universe to disprove God.
Is that your time?
We are coming up to 10 minutes now, so if you want to start talking now, Mark, it might be a good idea.
Yeah, sure. Thank you to EB3 for that opening. Thank you to the moderators. And
You paused your mic on this end. You paused your mic on this end. Nobody can hear you.
You're on mute.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you to the moderators, and thank you for inviting me here. Now, the question is, does God exist? And I am, in all facts, an atheist. So there's a few reasons why I don't think gods exist, both locally and globally, so in both senses of the word. Locally, what we have is a complete conflict between multiple God claims and the claims that are being made. They are contradictory in nature. A god cannot be all of the Hindu gods and a Trinitarian god at the same time. Usually when we are looking at objective facts, usually what happens is when we investigate, they all seem to line up with the same ideas. We usually get closer to agreement on what the actual facts are. That is not so with the God concept. Against every other fact that we investigate and find consensus on, the God one, the more they investigate, the further away they draw. This suggests that that God concept is just that, a concept which is schisming. We have this for everything, whether that be science or the facts of what somebody was doing on a certain day. When we investigate, we get more conformity than we do schisming, and all religion does is schism. There is maybe a burden of proof to at least find some evidence, but I think it is reasonable to say that if atheists don't need to prove a God doesn't exist. It is enough for them to believe a God doesn't exist. The theism and atheism isn't anything to do with actuality and rather belief. Now, the main reason why I think globally no gods exist is because of inductively, and that is that I have seen billions and billions of minds without with physical substrate, some kind of brain to power them, or a neurological network that in some way instantiates that mind. Now, the claim is being made, as opposed to all available evidence that I have, that there is a mind with no physical substrate, or the physical substrate in some way transcends to another realm. Now, I have no knowledge of this, and the only minds I have ever seen do rely on brains or some kind of neurological network to work. Now, it gets even worse because the more complex the neurological network, the more complex the mind will be. So there seems to be a connection between the mind and the brain. Now, please note, I'm not saying that it is impossible that a God exists. I'm not saying it definitely doesn't, but it is inductively reasonable to believe that a God does not exist based upon all minds that we've ever experienced in the past needing a brain to function. This holds true for everything, literally everything we've ever seen with a mind. Now, I think that if a mind could be shown to me without a brain, then I would definitely at least be agnostic, say that I don't know. But I think it's more than reasonable to conclude that minds without brains or minds without some kind of physical dimension cannot exist, because that's what we've seen them. Or at least if they may be able to exist, but nobody's ever shown me one of those. So I think I'm perfectly reasonable making that justification. Now, locally also, if you understand where particularly the Christian religion comes from, I'm not sure which denomination or which religion EB3 is, but the stories made up by the sort of early world Israelites definitely were man-made and fictional. It started with a pantheon, with the god being El, the consort Asherah, Baal the brother, and Yahweh was just one of that massive pantheon. And then sort of the rise of all of these stories, if you study history, it certainly looks like mythology, no different from Greek mythology, no different from any other mythology. So we have instances of mythology coming up, and no instances of non-mythology. Also, the problem is, good evidence is that when required to provide some sort of evidence of this God existing, they cannot provide the evidence that would warrant a belief in it. So I'll sort of say that, yes, evidence of absence is not necessarily absence of evidence, unless you would expect to find evidence and find none. For instance, if I say, hey, I have a stone in my hand, and you say, well, I don't see a stone, there's nothing there, the evidence of absence is an absence of evidence, but you would expect to see a stone there. So that is actually evidence that I do not have a stone. And again, deductively, if we look over the entire claims made by religious people, all the millions of claims of what has been done by God, from lightning to sickness to, all kinds of things, how the birds and the bees reproduce. It's all been claimed by God. As we've gone on in time, we have never found that to be the case. It has all been naturalistic explanations. Now, that doesn't preclude a God from doing it. It just means that at some point you've got to say, well, it's a God of the gaps. He's just doing whatever it is that we don't understand until we figure it out, and suddenly he just gets a little bit smaller, a little bit less powerful, because we know it's not required for that. I will simply believe that there is no God until it can be shown that this God is actually doing anything, because that doesn't seem to be able to be shown in any way. It has to be some kind of invisible, intangible, unfalsifiable, just sort of something that you can never see, touch, or hear, because, for Fend, you'll ever actually produce any evidence. So without the evidence, I don't see any reason to believe, and I see a lot of reasons to not believe, least withstanding that, the people claiming that it's true do nothing to even show that it's true. Thank you.
Come on, right, just to respond to a few of the points made in Mark's opening. Atheism is a religious following like any other. So I don't personally follow any single one religion like you. I agree they're all wrong. Probability theory dictates that all religions are wrong compared to any one of them being right. I am just a follower of the Christ. I've got a logical mind and the teachings of. They are completely two different aspects of life.
That's a religion.
I do not conform to any single one religion.
Okay,
I just follow the Christ and the teachings of.
What do atheists...
It is religious.
Well, what do atheists worship in their religion then?
Right, well, no, I never said I never said it was a religion. I used the word religious.
Well, I think that you're...
I'll demonstrate it for you.
No. Hold on a second, EB. You said atheism's a religion just like any other.
I didn't. I said atheism is a religious following like any other.
A religious following?
Yes.
Okay, so like football or, cricket.
Any position you hold today intellectually that you held true yesterday and will hold true again tomorrow is a position you are holding true religiously, regardless of what it is. Like me with Christ or you with atheism. You agree with that?
No, I think that sort of when we say, hey, somebody follows something religiously, like, oh, he follows the football religiously, it's just being meant as a metaphor. It's a metaphor for, hey, when we talk about religion, we're talking about an organized system of worship with tenets that have to be adhered to by the followers, usually with an object of worship or some, and I don't necessarily add this, but usually with some kind of supernatural element to it, usually.
Okay, well, like do you acknowledge realms spiritual and realms temporal, or just realms temporal? Is there only the material world as far as you are concerned? There is no spiritual world.
I'm a provisional materialist. I've only ever seen material things. I've never experienced anything supernatural, and it's never been demonstrated to me. So, yeah, for the moment, until you can actually demonstrate something supernatural, I would have to say, yeah, I don't believe there is a supernatural world.
Okay, so what about intellectualism or love, compassion? These things are not tangible, right? Yeah, they are of a spiritual nature. Do you not agree?
No,
They are
no.
beyond the material. Okay,
No,
well,
I don't think
you made
they
the
are.
claim about.
I think you can change that by using, like, for certain chemicals can make you feel love. That's exactly what MDMA does, right? It actually triggers that feeling inside people. All of this is pretty easy to do, and we understand intellectualism. I mean, yeah, we're not sure about consciousness, where it comes from, but that's no reason to think it's supernatural.
Why not? I mean, it's beyond
not?
the physical, yeah, it's
Can
beyond
you
the physical,
show that
natural
it's supernatural?
material world. It's beyond the physical material world.
Can you show that it's beyond the physical material world?
You made the claim about the brains and mind. You've never seen a mind without a brain. That's what you said, correct?
Yes, correct. Are you going to show
It's
me
not.
one?
Oh, scientifically, right, yeah, in accordance with all the scientific fields on Earth to this day, there is no precise location for the mind. It's yet to be located precisely. The brain and the mind are nowhere synonymous.
Well, hold on a second. We know that the mind comes from operations of the brain. We're just not sure why or how exactly it does. Yeah, because if you damage the brain, you damage the mind. And I'll point out that if you split the brain down the middle, if you split the brain down the middle in the corpus callosum, you'll actually get two different hemispheres of the brain that can disagree with each other on things. Right? Have you studied any of this?
I can disagree with. I can do that. Yeah. Wow. Listen, I can do that without you slicing my brain up. Regardless of that, scientifically, and I would advise you to go away. I would advise you to go away and do your
why do physical things
research.
help the supernatural mind then? How does the supernatural mind get split by the physical brain being split?
Is your claim that the mind?
I'm sorry, I
has
asked
been
a question.
definitively.
I asked a question.
And I'm answering it with a question. I'm answering it with a question.
Yeah, that doesn't answer. A question doesn't answer a question.
It does. It can do.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
It
If
really
it arrives
doesn't.
at the same juncture, I need to get your position on what you think the mind is first. Are you, in your worldview, are you sat there thinking that the scientific community, any branch of it you can think of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, any branch of science that you can think of, are you claiming that they know, the scientific community, where the mind is located precisely?
No, that's not what I said.
Right.
But you're claiming it doesn't come
then. So
from
your
something...
claims...
Hang on. You claimed that it didn't come from somewhere physical. You claimed it came from somewhere supernatural. And I would like you to demonstrate that. Oh, you didn't now?
I'm saying it...
Okay, well then it doesn't come from somewhere supernatural.
All right, hang on.
Okay.
Right, listen. When we're talking about... when I say natural, I'm talking about the material world. Supernatural is beyond the material world. Something... If you cannot touch it or see it or sense it, right, yeah, it's supernatural. Like intellectualism, for example, consciousness. You agreed that these are beyond the material world, beyond the material realm, beyond our grasp.
No, I didn't.
And no, you didn't. You didn't agree that. Okay. So,
No, I didn't.
But then you cannot prove that either. There is no scientific field out there that agrees with you definitively. That's proving it. There is no proof out there, right? Yeah, that the mind is a derivative of the brain.
Well, I think all neurologists would say that your mental states are a function of the brain, an emergent property of the brain. We just don't know exactly how it works, that's all. And the whole idea that saying, hey, because scientists can't explain it exactly down to the minutest detail, then it must be supernatural, is just a ridiculous claim. That's a God of the gaps claim. It's or a supernatural of the gaps. That because we don't understand something, it has to be supernatural. You could do the same with, gnomes, for instance. If we don't understand where the mind comes from, it must have been gnomes. Why not?
No, not quite, because we have a material physical body here in the third dimension, right? Yeah, and we can and have done scientifically throughout the endeavours of mankind throughout documented history, dissected, chopped it up, and mapped it out completely.
Yeah.
I can get you a book now of the biological makeup of any one sex, right? Yeah, and show you every vein, every vessel, every molecule within that physical body. However, right, yeah, when it comes to the mind, there is a realm of uncertainty. It's all subjective in nature. Therefore, any and all claims made about the mind are subjective. There are no known facts.
It's not
None
subjective
whatsoever.
where the mind comes from. There's going to be an ontology of where it comes from. There's going to be, like, it's not just, well, if I think the mind comes from God, it comes from God. And if I think the mind comes from a small garden gnome that magically beams it to me, that isn't subjective. Its origin will be objective. No. Well, I disagree.
Even
I would
if it's
love...
I'm saying, in accordance with modern science today, all claims regarding the mind are subjective in nature. Whether you make them, the scientific community makes them, or anyone else makes a claim about the mind. Where the mind is... if you make a claim about the body now, and I say I got a broken finger. This finger's broken. I don't need 10 doctors telling me and all of them agreeing with one another that it's broken. There are enough... scientific innovations and inventions out there to determine definitively whether it's broken or not. A consensus is irrelevant, but when it comes to claims of the mind, all it takes right now is a consensus of so-called professionals agreeing upon a certain factor for it to be given credence. However, there are no known facts. Right, yeah. If there were known facts about the mind, it wouldn't require a consensus, much like a broken finger. Right,
yes,
yeah?
the problem is that centuries ago, the religious people like yourself thought the broken finger was God. They thought it was a punishment by God. Things like disease they thought was God. In fact, cardio-centric thought at the time of some parts of the Bible, they thought that thoughts originated in the heart. That's what they thought, right? Because that's where they felt. So they thought that thoughts and reason and logic was in the heart. And so you'll notice as you go through the Bible, there's a lot of passages that say, listen to your heart. Read his thoughts from his heart. And basically it's misconstrued now to say, oh, well, it meant emotionally. But no, they actually literally meant in what we would say, hey, it was your brain. They would say it's your heart doing the thinking.
And
does that mean there's a God?
I heard you say...
Well, does that mean that there is a God because they didn't understand where thoughts came from?
Oh, no, I think they did. Like, the heart and the mind can be used synonymously.
You think your heart thinks?
Like, I think your skin breathes. Your skin is a living organism, right? Yeah, you are made up of many different living organisms, right? Yeah, that are consciously operating without you consciously telling them to do anything. They are acting upon their own volition, if you want, or you are doing it subconsciously, like a telekinesis or something along them.
Yeah, but that's not the mind.
Nature. How do you know? There isn't enough facts known about the mind for you to make that definitive claim.
Because people are like, take their hearts out and they're on like heart bypass and they don't suddenly lose their mind.
That's irrelevant. Because the mind might be operating beyond this physical one.
Oh, okay.
And listen, there's people that have lost limbs.
And I'm sure aliens will beam down another mind for them. Seriously, this is just sort of, conspiracy theory woo-woo nonsense. You've got nothing to back this up besides I believe it. And you can believe it if you want. Don't get me wrong.
You've got nothing to back up your claims about the mind other than you believe it.
Well, it is inductively. Every single time someone like you has said it is a supernatural thing when we have investigated, and this was the whole point, the trillions and trillions of times we've investigated, we've found that it hasn't been supernatural, it's been a physical process. So until you can show that the next one isn't a physical process, which it appears to be, because we can change how the mind works with chemicals, then you've got nothing.
No, you can't. You can change how the physiologically older... observations can be observed from the brain and stuff like that, right? Yeah. But... I've just lost my train of thought. What was it you just last said?
Well, we can change the mind with chemicals. Like if you're depressed, or if you're, say, for instance, got ADHD, or if you're, got anger issues, you can be sedated. Like we can literally change mental states with chemicals.
Right. Your claims about the mind, right, yeah, are subjective in nature. Now, I don't mind you using the scientific method at all, right, yeah, but are you aware of the problem of induction?
Yes.
You mentioned induction. Are you aware of the problem of induction?
Yes.
You are. What is it? Steel man it for me.
Okay, so Hume's problem of induction, and it's written first by Hume, basically says that, well, if you're using induction, you're basically relying on all the instances that have come previously to show that the next one is going to be the same. For instance, if you see, if I drop a pen 1,000,000 times and it falls, then I, using induction, can say, well, if I drop the pen, it'll fall. Now, the problem with this is that induction itself needs induction, because induction, we can only use it because every time we use it, it works, basically. But we don't know whether induction will suddenly break tomorrow and, induction won't work anymore, that even though I've dropped the pen 1,000,000 times, it doesn't drop and rather floats up. So it's a circular problem of induction relying on induction.
Yes, I agree with everything you said. The problem with induction, right, yeah, is that no experiment can be exactly replicated twice. Right, yeah? Each experiment is unique and it can never be repeated again. We are never in the same part of the... I listened to everything you had to say. In accordance with scientific reason, we are never in the same part of the galaxy twice, hurtling throughout, around the sun, throughout the cosmos. We are never in the same part of the galaxy twice. Every iota of every second is a unique experience, never to be repeated ever.
Do you use induction?
So it's impossible to conduct the same experiment twice. As a probable outcome to rely upon, I agree, right? Yeah. Listen, the scientific.
I'm sorry, you're not answering my question. Do you use induction?
I agree with it. Of course I do.
Yeah, of course you do.
But
yeah.
there is a problem. It is,
so,
but it's faith-based. It's
so
faith-based.
why do you use it if it doesn't? If you're claiming that you can't rely on it, it's unreliable. Why do you use it?
I'm saying it's faith-based. No. My argument is, I'm not saying that.
I don't think it is faith-based.
My argument is it is. No. My argument is that
it depends on your
relying on
definition
induction and the scientific. You relying on induction and the scientific method, right, yeah, is equally as faith-based as any other religious following because of the problem of induction. We are never in the same part of the galaxy twice. No experiment can be identically replicated at all, ever. Each iota of 1 second to the next is a complete unique moment in time, never to be repeated. Right, yeah, you are never...
Then why do you use induction? Then why do you use it?
It's a faith-based. It's a
no. Why do you use it if it's a reasonable?
I'm answering you. I'm answering you. It's a reasonable faith-based system I can rely on.
Yeah, but the problem with that is it's not the same as faith-based, where you're basically saying, well, I haven't seen a Jesus, I haven't, done all of this, I haven't, I can't show anybody this God. You have. Okay, fantastic. You're a prophet or whatever. Have you talked to him? Does he tell you stuff?
No, I haven't talked to him. I've seen him in an out-of-body experience.
Okay, out-of-body experience, right. So basically, you can't show anybody this, but you just take it on faith. I can demonstrate to you that induction works, and here, I'm just about to do it. Okay, I've got this pen. What happens when I drop it?
It is almost certainly going to fall.
Wow, induction works. How about that? How about that? When the pen floats off... Well, no, it's not. It's basically evidence of.
Is it, no, but let me rearrange that equation.
Sure.
Are you able to drop that pen in the same place twice?
What do you mean in the same place? In the local space, yeah.
All right, look, I've just dropped this pen.
Yes.
If I do it again, is this repetition identical to the first one?
In your frame of reference, yeah.
No, it's not. They are two completely unique moments.
No, because physics have a frame of reference, right?
And it's faith-based.
Yes, and if we drop it,
because this was similar, because
Okay.
this is
Yes.
99.999% similar
EB,
to the one that
EB.
happened before it, I can rely on it happening again.
Yeah. The repetition
understand
of
your
it
argument.
eliminates that time as being relevant because it keeps on happening no matter what the time. So we can wait 5 minutes and do it again and see if that works. We can wait 10 minutes and do it again.
And do you know how
see
I
if
met
that
the
works.
Christ? Do you know how I met the Christ?
I don't really care. I don't really care. I really don't.
Why not? It's no differently to dropping the pen.
Because unless you can demonstrate it, can you demonstrate that you met the Christ?
I can show you how I did it, and then you can do
how
it
you
yourself.
did it. Okay, I'm fascinated now. How did you do it?
Right. Before I even turned to any scripture, and I've read it all from cover to cover, but before I ever did any of that, I used to be a rat race, drug dealing criminal, didn't give a fuck, right? Yeah, making money, doing crime, and I got to a point where I was sick of that. I didn't want to be that man anymore. I didn't want that life.
Okay,
anymore.
I'm really not interested in
I had
how
a solemn
you felt
moment.
about it.
Let me just have two.
Just tell me how you met them.
I'm showing you. Right. I had a solemn moment, and I did what I know now to be a prayer. But I asked for Jesus, the Christ, with an honest heart. And
I've done that.
I was obviously in a place. Look, stop speaking over me. I was in a place where it was very emotive, and I was, fused with my thoughts and everything. And I was calling out to someone or something if they existed, right? Yeah, to show me that they existed, because I really wanted to know. I wanted to be a better man, and I wanted to change my life. That night, I had an out-of-body experience, and I was in a crowd of people, and I saw the Christ doing something in front of me. And when I realised, shit, this is really happening, I folded back into my body in my bed. It's like, them springy things, right? Yeah. But Mark, I asked with an honest heart, like you.
That's it.
I didn't.
That's it.
No, God doesn't exist. I asked with an honest heart.
You said that, and I've heard the story. Nothing about that lets me think that that's actually Jesus.
You can do this. You can do this, like dropping the pen.
Okay, I'm not here to have you
Christ
preach
with an honest
at me.
heart. If you ask for Christ with an honest heart, right, yeah, and admit all your faults, all the shit that you know about yourself to be true, and say, listen,
look, I'm not here for preaching.
True about me.
I'm
not
here
hiding
for
from
preaching.
you, Christ.
Can we
Show
please
yourself
move
to
on
me.
from the preaching?
No, I'm not
this
preaching.
Is ridiculous.
Yes,
you
you
are.
showed me how to drop a pen, and I want to show you how to.
Okay, so how do you
Christ in
know
the same way.
that wasn't just a
Guys.
vision or a dream or some kind of hallucination on your part? If you were such a drug-dealing, horrible person, you were probably high as a kite.
The leap of faith, no differently to you relying
Were
on
you
induction.
high?
So let me finish speaking. No.
Okay,
So I might have had plenty of stuff in my system.
Okay, so how do you prove you had plenty of stuff in your system, right? Acid flashback or something, right? You had this hallucination.
Yes.
How do you know that it's real?
A leap of faith. I'm
A
convinced.
leap of faith. So you just assume that it's real,
I'm
even though
satisfied.
there's no evidence. Okay, you're satisfied. I'm not. That is a ridiculously bad story. And, lots
I
of
wasn't
people
allowed to
claim
finish it without
have-
you interrupting it.
Well, you were just preaching. Lots of people have had visions of
I wasn't.
Vishnu.
I wasn't.
of-
It sounded like I was preaching. but I
No,
wasn't. I
you're
was trying
sitting
to
there.
show you a
You're sitting there.
scientific method.
No, AB.
I was trying to
can
show
I
you a
please? Can I
scientific
please
method
talk?
into
Can I
getting
please
in touch
talk
with the
now?
Christ.
Can I please talk now? Whenever you're sitting there telling me, oh, I was honest and all you have to do is be honest and accept Jesus and do all of these things and go and do this, that is 100% preaching, EB. It really is. And that is a pathetic story. I'm sorry, it's terrible. It's basically, well, I had a vision of something, in no way can I confirm it. And you can believe it on faith. I get you. You can. I don't believe it because I haven't had that experience. Now, I do want to go on to something that you said, and it's really important that you said if something's logically possible, then it exists. And you sort of misrepresented me halfway through that.
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
no,
you
I
did.
didn't. Don't misquote me. No, I didn't. I
Yeah, you
said
did.
if something is logical. No, I didn't. I said if something is logically possible,
Yeah.
then in accordance with the principle of non-contradiction, then it's illogical to say that it isn't.
It isn't real, isn't existent, isn't what?
Isn't possible.
Isn't
if something is
possible.
logically possible, right? Stop speaking. 30 seconds. If something is logically possible, then in accordance with the principle of non-contradiction, it's illogical to say that it isn't possible.
And so when did I say that God wasn't
You're-
possible?
Ah. Right. Oh, so you're saying then God, it's logical to believe in God?
No. Logical and logically possible are two different things, and this is where you're conflating and misrepresenting me. Because what your thing was that I said that something's logically possible, that doesn't mean it exists, right? Unicorns are logically possible. That doesn't mean that unicorns exist.
No, you're misconstruing my argument. You bad faith. My argument is, in accordance with the principle of non-contradiction, if an aspect of life is logical, it's illogical to claim otherwise. That's it. That's the formula.
Sorry, could you expand on that?
Nothing about existence. Nothing about existence. Nothing about belief.
Could you expand on that a bit?
The logical equate. In accordance with the principle of non-contradiction, if an aspect of life can logically exist, then it's illogical to claim otherwise.
I could say.
So you saying that God doesn't exist or claiming it doesn't exist isn't a logical stance.
I didn't say that.
According to you.
No, what I said was that just because, and the whole thing was someone was saying that God, there's nothing logically impossible about God. And I said just because something is logically possible doesn't mean it exists or I should believe in it.
No.
Yeah, that is exactly what I said.
Just because something is logical doesn't mean you have to believe in it, which is fine. You don't have to. But logic still remains. If something is logically possible, it's illogical to claim that it isn't.
Can I share my screen and we'll go through this short that you had, or do you want to show the short where you basically had this amazing response kind of thing?
I'm basically saying it now. If an aspect of life is true, logical, then it's illogical to claim that it's untrue or illogical, right? Yeah, like it's that simple. You must be aware of the principle of non-contradiction.
Should we listen to this one? That a unicorn exists. There's nothing illogical about that, but I don't believe one exists. So you're conflating sort of a possibility, a logical possibility, with a belief that in an actuality.
Let me just say to this atheist, if you are announcing that a claim or an aspect of life can logically exist, then it's illogical to deny its existence. It doesn't matter what you believe in.
That's exactly what you said.
Yes.
Is it logically possible that I'm in the kitchen? Hello. I've got a question. Is it logically possible that I'm in the kitchen?
Yes.
Is it actuality? Am I in the kitchen?
I don't know. Why not? You got a blue screen, green screen behind you, or some sort of app. You could be anywhere.
Okay. You
can designate any room in your house as a kitchen.
Sure. Is it logically possible that I'm in the living room?
What do you mean?
Is it logically possible that I'm in the living room? Is it logically possible?
Is it logically possible that
could you not lean into your microphone like that? Like seriously, leaning in and sort of raising your voice is not helpful.
If you speak over me again, we're going to end this, right? Is it logically possible Is it logically possible that you can designate any room in your household, any name you want? Kitchen, living room, this, or that, whatever, study. Right then, so it doesn't matter what words you ascribe to it. If you want the room you are in right now to be a kitchen, it's your kitchen. I'm happy with that.
What I'm saying is it's logically possible that I'm in my kitchen. There's no violation of the laws of logic of that. I could be in my kitchen. I was in there the other day. It's logically possible that I'm in my living room. There's no violation of the laws of logic. I was in there the other day. There is no violation of logic saying I could be in the kitchen in some possible world or I could be in the living room in some possible world. The problem is that you're claiming because it's logically possible, then it actually is. And therefore you would have to claim I am both in the kitchen and in the living room, making that a clear contradiction of logic. It cannot be.
No.
That's what you said.
You're straw manning. That's not my argument.
No, that is exactly your argument.
Right, okay. Don't interrupt me then, because I heard all that. I know what I said in that clip about, because that was your claim about unicorns existing. But the logical equation doesn't need to have those claims and existence in it. If an aspect of life is logical, or if you are claiming an aspect of life can logically exist, right? It's the same formula. Then it's then then it's illogical to claim that it cannot or doesn't.
Well, I didn't say it cannot.
Your belief on whether it does, your beliefs on whether it does or not, right? Yeah, is an appeal to emotion. It's got nothing to do with logic.
No, it isn't
Right,
an appeal to
if
emotion.
an
It's
aspect
pure
of life
logic.
can
Yeah, can I talk now?
If an aspect of life, no. You've
Okay,
just
well, I'll
been
take
talking.
notes
If an
then.
aspect of life, let's take notes. Write this down. If it is logical, right? Yeah, that a claim can exist, it's illogical to claim otherwise. It's that simple, right? Yeah. Now it was put to you: is God the Creator logical? And you went, just because it's logical doesn't mean I have to believe in it. I can believe like with your different rooms in the house, I can believe a unicorn exists. Doesn't mean I have to believe in it. Granted, you don't. Your beliefs are appeals to emotion. Logic is a logical precept stand as fact until proven otherwise.
Yeah, so that's not what I was saying.
If an aspect, 10 more seconds, if an aspect of life is logical, then it is illogical to assume or argue otherwise. And if God is, and He is, the Creator is logical, the atheist position is illogical.
So what you just said was that if something is logically possible, then it is illogical to argue otherwise. Now, this repeats the claim that you've made that if something's logically possible, then it actually exists. And I wasn't talking about my belief in that God. Can I please talk, or are you just going to interrupt me now? Is this what's going on? So when you say something's logically possible, therefore it is illogical to argue otherwise, if it is both logically possible for me to be in the kitchen and in the living room, and we can argue with neither of them, then you've got yourself into a contradiction. You are completely misunderstanding how logical possibility works. That we're basically saying in some possible world, this thing could be the case, that it could be otherwise. Now, for logical possibility, this just means there is no violation of the laws of logic. In the case of physical possibility, it means there's no violation of the laws of physics. Like, it is logically possible for me to fly. In some possible world, I could have been granted magic powers to fly. That doesn't mean it is an actuality. It doesn't mean it actually is. And that's the problem. You're sort of going, well, if it's logically possible, then it must be the case. But the problem there is nothing logically impossible about all gods, or no gods, or a flying magic squirrel. It doesn't violate the laws of logic. However, if you take that to an extremes, if you say if something is logically possible, then it is the case, you will have a logical contradiction. You absolutely will.
I didn't say that. Again, I'm going to try one last time, right? It's a logical equation. It's the principle of non-contradiction, right? Yeah. If an aspect or claim can logically exist, then it's illogical to claim otherwise, right? Yeah. Meaning, if an aspect of life is logical, right, yeah, and it's not logical that you can fly just because you might be able to in some other parallel universe or something like that. That's not logic. I don't know what you're on about, mate. You've abandoned logic ages ago. The logical equation is, if an aspect of life is logical, then it cannot be true that it is illogical. Right? It has to be logical at all times. Right? Yeah? It cannot be logical and illogical at the same time. So if it's logical that an aspect of life can possibly exist, then an atheist position saying God doesn't exist until you prove it to me is an illogical position, because we've already determined that God, the Creator, can logically exist. That's simple. The position of the atheist are shrouded in realms of illogical atmospheres, right?
Could you
all
still,
their arguments
could
are
you
illogical.
still, man?
None of them. Don't speak over me. I didn't speak over you. I didn't speak over you once. I listened to everything you had to say. The stance of the atheist is an illogical one. They have no standing in the realms of logic whatsoever, right? Yeah, none, right? Yeah, because God, the Creator, can logically exist. Therefore, all the arguments of the atheists are illogical.
Yes, but Shiva the Destroyer can logically exist. What violation? Well, for a start, can I get you to explain and steelman the law of contradiction, please?
Yes.
Yeah, go for it.
The cat is on the mat. If it's true that the cat is on the mat, then it cannot be true that the cat is not on the mat.
Okay, well that's one instance. It's basically that neither something cannot be a thing and it's contrary at the same time. So it cannot be on the mat.
So
and
if an aspect of life is logical, it cannot be illogical anywhere else.
No, that's not what we're talking about. Because
so you've just abandoned
hang on. I want to speak.
Logic.
I want to speak. You're using just logical, right? That's all you're using instead of logical possibility. Right, that in some other instantiation of some possible world, things could be different. You're not understanding the possibility part. Like if we say it's physically possible for me to lift this thing, we're not saying that I am or are going to lift the thing. We're saying it's physically possible. When we say it's logically
You're straw manning.
Can I please speak?
If it's logically
hello, moderator.
possible,
Can I please
if
speak?
it's logically possible,
Can I speak?
straw manning. You're straw manning my argument.
No, you're missing out the possibility. Like it is logically possible for me to walk through the door right now. It's logically possible, but I'm not doing it. It is not the real life. You are completely confused with what logical, and logical possibility is. We're talking about something that does not contravene the laws of logic. That's what we're talking about.
Okay, you agreed with my cat is on the mat, and therefore the cat cannot not be on the mat, right? Yeah, mm-hmm. Right. If God can logically exist, the Creator, right? Yeah, then it cannot be illogical that God the Creator cannot exist, right? Yeah, I mean.
I see where you've got
that God the Creator cannot exist.
Yes. So the contradiction
if it's logical that God can exist, it cannot be logical that God cannot exist.
Nobody said that.
Both cannot be true at the same time.
Nobody said that.
Right, but that's my argument, and you've been straw manning me since I gave it to you.
So basically, the contrary would be.
You're terrible.
Your argument's terrible. I'm not talking about you. The contrary would be if God is logically possible, he could also be. He could not be logically impossible, and no one's saying God is logically impossible. We're asking whether he exists in actuality. Like I said, it's possible for me to walk through the door. That's logically possible, but I'm not doing it right now. It's not real. It's just in an alternative world. It is possible that I can walk through the door. So your understanding of this is so flawed. Well, is it logically possible?
It's flawed. You're bringing your personal beliefs into a logical equation.
No, I'm not.
To emotion. Where's the evidence? Why can't you show me? I can walk through a door. These are all appeals to emotion. The logical equation exists. Can God, the Creator, logically exist? Or is God, the Creator, logical? Right? Both of those two. Right, yeah? The opposite cannot be true. Whatever the opposite is.
Is it logically possible that you were never born? Is that logically possible? That your parents never met and you weren't born? Is that logically possible?
No.
Okay, so what law of logic does it violate?
The law of excluded middle identity, I don't know.
Excluded middle. Okay, excluded middle. So excluded middle is saying that something cannot occupy being both itself and the contradiction, right? So if you're saying it... Well, no, hang on a second. We're not talking about what actually is. We're talking about possibilities, right? What's possible, not what is. This is where you're going wrong. Heavily wrong. Because to say non-contradiction, it would have to mean that you're both born and not born at the same time. Excluded middle is saying that you're both born and not born at the same time. Oh, no, excluded middle means there's a third category. What would be the third category?
Yes. I'm alive here, therefore it's illogical to assume
that isn't a third category. That is you being born. That is not a third category.
I'm here right now. I'm here right now as we're entertaining the equation. Me being born is past tense, a time in history that can logically exist or does not logically exist, and we already know the outcome.
So you don't think there's any possibility?
I'm the excluded middle. I'm the excluded middle that
you don't understand what it is.
Totally
you don't understand. What is the law of excluded middle?
Let me just refresh my memory.
Oh yeah, Google away. That's good.
I'm not. What do you mean Google?
I can see you
I'm
looking
just
at your
looking
screen,
at my
dude.
own. I'm
Yeah.
looking at.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You can see me on my screen, can you? You can see me on my screen, can you? Typing. I'm just looking over my notes. Okay. According to this principle, for any proposition, either that proposition is true or its negation is true in formal terms. An example is, it is raining or it is not raining. Is it logically possible that I was never born? No, because it's raining, I'm here. So I am the excluded middle that you negated in your...
No, that's not what it means. Basically, if there's a possibility that you were never born, excluded middle says that in any statement and its negation. So in this case, because I'm saying you were never born, the negation would be you are born, right? Like that you actually exist, that you are. You know, you were born, because that's the negation of it. So
let me amend your equation.
No. I'm speaking. In this case, you're basically saying that I am saying a third option than the option of being born, the option of not being born, but I'm not. I'm only giving the contrary. That's all I'm giving, is not born. Is that possible? Logically. And if it's not logically possible, it has to violate one of the three laws of logic. It has to.
And I've already said that from this standpoint, it's not logically possible. Was it logically possible that when my parents met, they never had sex and I wasn't created? Yes, that was logically possible if we was to go back in time and assume a position on...
Right, it's logically possible.
Before... Speak over me. It was logically possible at a time before I was born. It's not logically possible now. So that was what was missing out of your equation. That's why I am the excluded middle. It is raining. I am the rain. I am alive. I've been born.
No, it's logically possible.
It's not logically possible that I was never born.
Yeah,
it's not logically possible that I was never born.
It doesn't matter.
From this moment in time, if you was to go back in time and reevaluate that equation at the time where I was conceived, then yes, of course.
Yes, of course, it's logically possible. Thank you.
Right.
No, that's exactly what I'm saying.
At that point in time. So is God logically possible?
Yeah. There's nothing illogical about it. God, it doesn't
it's a logical
any
then.
Of the Lords.
It's a logical then to claim otherwise, correct?
No, that's not correct.
Why? Tell me why.
Because it's logically possible that you were never born. It's logically possible that I didn't arrive to this debate. There's no violation of the laws of logic of saying, hey, in some possible world, I just chose not to show up today. There's no violation of the laws of logic of that. But just because something is logically possible doesn't mean that it is, in fact, an actuality. So if you're sort of saying, well, God's logically possible... Well, you said God's logically possible. You can't argue against it.
No. Right. If something... this is why you're abandoning logic. I'm going to try one last time.
You don't even understand the laws of logic. It's crazy.
It's you that doesn't understand. You keep saying, that something could be logical and illogical at the same time. That's not possible.
I never said it was impossible. When did I say... Hang on. When did I say that God is impossible?
No, you denied.
Yes.
Right, my claim. Right, listen. And you are wrong. You're abandoning logic. Right, yeah. Is God logically possible?
Logically, yes.
And it's illogical to claim that God is impossible. Right, yeah? Right?
Yes.
You agree with that?
Yes. I've never claimed God is
so your
impossible.
Belief, that's it. I've got your agreement. That's it. We don't need to continue this. Right, yeah. Your claim was to the individual that asked you a question was, just because a unicorn can logically exist doesn't mean I have to believe in it. That's fine. But that doesn't mean that the unicorn...
Is it logically possible?
Is illogical.
Is it logically possible?
No, it's illogical.
Hang on, no, answer my question.
Is unicorn's existence is illogical.
The unicorn logically possible?
Is a one-horned animal possible? Yes.
Yeah, well, then it's logically possible, right? So does that mean that the unicorn is impossible?
No, but...
Does that mean that the unicorn actually exists?
Fuck, I was just answering you and you spoke over me. What it means is that it's impossible for it to be illogical. If something is
But it doesn't
logical,
actually
it's impossible
exist.
for it to be illogical.
It doesn't
It
exist.
doesn't matter if it exists or not.
It does. That's the title of the
matter if it-
debate. That is the title of the debate.
No.
And what you have asserted
No,
is that because something isn't impossible, it actually exists. That's where you're going with this.
No, because you can change the equation. It's
Just
something-
saying that one thing isn't impossible doesn't get you one iota, one shred towards whether or not it exists.
Right. If something can logically exist, it's
Like the unicorn, yeah.
false to claim. If something can logically exist, like God,
Sure.
it's false
Or the
to
unicorn.
claim that it's fuck me. If something can logically exist, like the claim of God,
Or unicorn.
it's impossible for the claim of God's existence to be illogical.
It's impossible to claim the existence of God
God's
to
existence
be
is illogical.
illogical,
Illogical.
which I never have.
the
When did I
existence-
do that?
Right. So okay. So you've just agreed that the existence of God is logical,
logical
and
possibility,
It's illogical
yeah.
to claim. It's illogical to claim otherwise. And when I say that, this
No.
is why
What
you've
do you
been
mean
strawmanning
by
me.
otherwise?
Stop
What are you
speaking,
talking about?
Mark. I don't want to keep doing this for 5 hours. Just
Yeah.
I've got 1 minute. 1 minute.
What is your problem? Like,
When
seriously?
It's you.
Oh, okay.
Keep
Well,
strawmanning me. That's my problem.
no,
You keep
no, I'm
strawmanning
not.
my argument.
Because you say
do.
it's wrong
Yes,
to
you are.
say
You keep
otherwise.
speaking over me. You keep
I've
strawmanning my
never
argument, and you're
said.
speaking over me
I've
now.
never said that God is a logical impossibility. I've never said that it's impossible for a God to exist. What I'm saying is that even if God is logically possible, like aliens are logically possible, Bigfoots are logically possible, a unicorn's logically possible, fairies are logically possible, does not mean you get even one iota towards that thing actually existing, which this isn't a debate about whether God's logically
Said this
possible.
5
It's a
fucking
debate
times.
about whether a God actually exists. And you're basically saying, well, it's possible. No one cares.
No, right, stop speaking then. If you don't care, stop speaking. You won't need to interrupt me then. Right, yeah? Claim you've admitted to on this live right now, right, yeah? You've admitted that the existence of God, the creator, is logical, right? And it's illogical to claim that God's existence, the creator, right, yeah, isn't logical.
I never
right?
said it was logical.
Therefore, You did. Anyway.
No, I
right,
didn't.
Yeah? Anyway, regardless of... You just said fairies and everything is logical.
Logically
Listen,
possible.
stop speaking
Look, this
over
is a
me.
problem. You are strawmanning me. Every time I say logically possible, you say, oh, you're saying it's logical. No,
Go away,
I
you
did
bad
not.
faith. You bad faith. You bad
Run
faith.
away. Seriously, this is why I wanted to do a debate with
It's
a neutral
you're
moderator.
speaking over me like some sort of brat because you're losing the debate.
Like, did I say logical? God is logical?
Stop speaking for 60 seconds. That's all I want you to do.
Well, then don't misrepresent me.
Stop speaking for 60 seconds. I'm not misrepresenting anyone right now. I'm
Yeah,
giving
you
you
are.
a logical equation, right? No, I'm not. I'm not giving you your arguments. I'm not giving anyone your arguments. I'm giving you a logical equation. All it requires is for you to shut the fuck up for 60 seconds, right? God can logically exist according to your own stances and mine and logic right now. Therefore, it's illogical to claim God doesn't exist. And any atheist that claims God doesn't exist is operating outside the realms of logic and reason. Thank you. Now, you can say whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
How would you like to... You can have...
So basically when you say could logically exist, there's a big word there, could, that it is possible that it exists. Then you're saying it is illogical to claim that God doesn't, right? That's the problem. That, we basically say, no, we're not saying it's illogical to believe a God doesn't exist. We're saying it's illogical to believe there is no possibility of a God existing. And this is the thing, possibility. You haven't demonstrated that you've only demonstrated that it's logically possible. You haven't demonstrated whether it's possible at all. Physically possible, actually possible, whether it's even plausible that this thing exists. All you've said is it's not impossible. Great. fairies aren't impossible, unicorns aren't impossible. And then you've claimed to say, well, then it's illogical to disbelieve it. No, that doesn't follow. That's a non sequitur.
I'm not sure you're debating with, but those are not my arguments. I'm just operating purely within the realms of logic, right? Yeah, it isn't about God's existence or not, really. But you've already asserted that God, the Creator, is logical, right? Yeah. Therefore, claiming that God, the Creator, is illogical, right? Yeah, is false. And any atheist that claims that God doesn't exist just off the bat like that, without because there's no obligation on them to believe in God in the first place, right? Yeah, is acting irrationally, unreasonably, and contrary to logic. It's that simple. And I fully respect your beliefs. You don't have to believe in anything, right? Yeah, there's no obligation to, right? Yeah, but to deny the existence of, when that existence is purely logical within the realms of logic, right? Yeah, is you acting illogically.
Then you believe in gnomes. Then gnomes exist.
Oh my God!
What this is an absurdio reductio ad absurdum, right? What we do is we put a contrary to what you're talking about in the same argument and see where it leads us. So what we'll basically do is say, okay, pixies, right? So pixies are logically possible. If they're logically possible, it is illogical to claim that they don't exist, which is exactly what you said. And people can rewind it and listen to what you actually said. And then I can say, if you say, no, well, I still don't believe in pixies, I can say, well, you've dropped all logic. Because they're completely logically possible. So it's illogical to believe that they don't exist. You've dropped all logic. You've dropped all reason. You're whatever else dumbass stuff that you said.
I didn't make up the rules of logic. The logic has a principle of non-contradiction. If the cat is on the mat, and it cannot be true that the cat is not on the mat. If it is logical that God exists, right, yeah, then it cannot be true that it's logical that God does not exist. It's that simple, and I cannot explain it to you in any more simple terms.
No.
Your beliefs on the matter are irrelevant. They're not even in the equation.
No.
There's no obligation for you to believe in the existence of or not. However, if you are to continue acting logically with a rational mind, you have to concede and accept that it is logical for God's existence.
So you've made a real problem there. You have a real problem there because what you've done is you have not given the law of contradiction, because you've said if God is logically possible, the negation to that, the negation to that is God is not logically possible. It doesn't mean God exists. It doesn't mean that God doesn't exist. It means that that's the contrary. Yes. So so it means that God is not logically possible.
So if God is logically possible, anyone that claims that it isn't, right, yeah, is acting illogically. That includes me, you, and and everyone. Yeah,
because
you don't understand.
Because if I say it's logically possible that I have a kangaroo in my house, it's no contradiction of logic there. I'm in Australia. I could have got a kangaroo. You don't know.
It would be illogical to say. That it's impossible for you to have a kangaroo in your house.
But is there a kangaroo in my house?
If it's right, it doesn't matter whether there's one in there. We're on about.
Does that make you illogical to say, hey, I don't believe you have a kangaroo in your house? Does that make that illogical then?
No, it's an appeal to...
There you go. But it is a logical possibility that it's a kangaroo in my house. You're basically saying, hey, I don't believe you that there's a kangaroo in your house because that may not be the actuality. Right?
An appeal to emotion, yes, correct.
What do you mean? What's the appeal to emotion?
My emotions are, I don't believe you. You haven't provided me with enough evidence. Right? Regardless, stop speaking over me.
Belief isn't an
emotion. I'm giving you the answer you asked for. You asked for something. I'm giving it to you. You start speaking over me like, no, shutting me down straight away like a child.
Well, belief isn't an emotion. It's a mental state.
It's right. Wow. And what creates that mental state derived from emotions, right? Yeah. If something is logical, like a kangaroo existing in your house, and I just don't believe it, yeah, it's perfectly logical, right? Yeah, because you're saying it's perfectly logical that a kangaroo is in my house. My beliefs don't need to come into the equation, does it? All I need to do is oh, yes, of course, it's logical for a kangaroo to be in your house.
Yes.
I agree.
But
I don't need to oppose logic. Why would I oppose logic?
But that doesn't actually mean there's a kangaroo in my house, does it?
Relevant. I'm only agreeing to
relevant.
the logic of it.
It's very relevant because
No,
if I
I'm
say,
only agreeing to the logic of it.
there's
It's
a
not
God in
relevant.
my house, if
No.
I say there's a God in my house,
To
and you
agree
say
to the logic.
there's logically
to agree to
possible
the
for
logic,
the God to
doesn't
be in my
require
house,
a kangaroo
and
to
then
be in
you
your
say,
house.
hey, I don't, there is no God in your house. The God could just not be there. It's logically possible, but it could still not exist, and that's what you have not addressed through this entire thing.
Yes, but it's not logical. Yes, but it's not logical to believe
It's
in
not
that
logically
existence if logic
to.
dictates.
It's not logical to disbelieve in my
It's not logical to
kangaroo
believe
either.
in that non-existence if logic dictates. If logic dictates its existence, right? Yeah, it's not logical to believe in the non-existence of something, right? Yeah, the non-existence of that logical possibility.
So you believe in
perfectly
everything.
Logical.
Do you believe in everything that is logically possible?
I believe everything that is logically possible is perfectly logical.
What does that supposed to mean? What does that mean?
Logically and logical.
Perfectly logical.
Shut up then.
What does that mean?
It's in accordance with the principle of non-contradiction. Anything and everything that is logical, right, yeah, or can logically exist, right, yeah, or any claim that is logical, right, yeah, is perfectly logical.
That's a tautology.
Wow.
That's a tautology. You're just basically saying, well, perfectly
explain.
logical is perfectly logical. Congratulations. I don't know what to say to that.
Yeah. Anything that is logically possible, right?
Like the kangaroo.
Perfectly logical. Absolutely.
It's perfect. It's a perfectly
agree with
logical
that?
kangaroo, is it?
A kangaroo is a genuine article, correct?
Well, guess what? It doesn't exist. Just like your God is perfectly logical and doesn't exist.
No, you can't prove it's not. You can't prove that it doesn't exist with logic.
Well, at least I've given some evidence as to why I believe it doesn't. You've given
just a belief.
nothing.
I'll try to tell you.
Whose belief am I supposed to have? Yours?
I'll try to educate you on how to get personal private relationship with the Christ, but you just considered it to be preaching, like you dropping the pen. I didn't accuse you of preaching when you started dropping the pen, even though that's what you're doing. You're preaching your religious belief system.
You can do it yourself.
Your faith-based religious. You were preaching your faith-based religious following onto me, and I was willing to listen to it. But the minute I tried to...
So you don't think pens drop?
The drop in the pen version, when I tried to give you the drop in the pen version of meeting the Christ, you didn't want to know it was preaching. Yeah, you're an ignorant individual. You don't want to learn the science of meeting the Christ.
Oh, that's science, is it?
Do you think science is a biblical concept? Did you not know?
No, science is not a biblical concept. There's nothing scientific in the Bible.
How many times is it mentioned in the Holy Bible?
Science?
How many times is the science mentioned?
None.
Yes. How many times is the word science mentioned in none?
None.
Wrong.
The Bible was written in ancient
What
Hebrew
about?
and ancient Greek, and the word itself, scientia, comes from Latin. It was never written in the Bible.
Want a bet?
Sure. Go for it.
How much? What would you like to bet?
Just show me the passage or whatever you've got. Like, seriously, go on.
Okay. I'm showing it now on my screen. Like, shall
I
I share my
can
screen?
stop sharing. Yeah, go for it.
Share window and screen. Open. Yeah, that one. There we go. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy lust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science falsely so called. Daniel 1:4, children in whom was no blemish were well favoured, and skillful in all wisdom and cunning in knowledge, and understanding science, and as such had the ability in them to stand at the king's palace, in whom they might teach and learnings in the tongue of the Chaldeans. Right, yeah, so science and the sciences, right, yeah, are a biblical concept that derive from, measurements and numbers and everything, right, yeah, all derive from biblical scripture, right, yes. The scientific method you are using is biblical.
No, it isn't. So the whole thing
I'm just
about
proving it.
Yeah, so that translation. It just means knowledge. That's the translation. The original word, that's the translation. The word science was not in the original text. Like, you are basically
By
taking,
any other name.
could you not
by any
lean
other
into your
name, smells of
microphone
sweet.
like an absolute degenerate and yell? Like, seriously, it's very, very horrible. So this is the thing. Like, what we know as science now, right? What we know as science now was not in the Bible. It wasn't sort of observation testing, going through a process. No, it wasn't. And the only place that is in the King James version. In the other versions, it does not say that. It says knowledge.
In the Geneva too. You are utterly wrong.
Okay, so they were talking about science. So how do you explain all of the scientific experiments done in Greece before, you know, they were even a thing?
Before they were even a thing? What
Yeah, the New Testament. The scriptures.
I have no explanation. What are you on about?
So even though the ancient Greeks, Archimedes and stuff.
Question, I'll go to answer. You start speaking over me. Right, yeah. According, as far as I'm concerned, a rose by any other name will smell as sweet. Whatever the sciences were called in ancient Greece, right, yeah, were the same sciences in biblical times, in Old Testament days and stuff like that. No differently, right, yeah. The sciences were the sciences, regardless of what word was ascribed to them.
I agree. They certainly didn't come from the Bible.
No, I said biblical.
Yeah,
science
no, they didn't come from there
concept.
either. No, they didn't. They don't. They're basically science. Like, real old science started with the natural philosophers of ancient Greece. We know this as fact. Like, it wasn't a biblical thing. There were no, you know, there was a lot of people doing. Oh dear.
All of documented history is hearsay. All of documented
like the Bible.
Is hearsay.
Like the Bible.
Yeah.
Oh, it's hearsay. All right. Well, I mean, then I won't believe it. That's fine then.
Hearsay doesn't mean false either. This is what I mean. Yeah, you're an illogical man. Hearsay doesn't mean false. It just means it's second-hand evidence and shows the weakness of it. If you weren't there first-hand to witness an event, right? Yeah, then you were relying on hearsay, second-hand testimony. This is hearsay, second-hand, third-hand, fourth-hand, fifth-hand, 100-hand testimony. I admit that. I agree with that 100%. But so is all this documented history you claim to be fact. It's not fact, it's hearsay.
So Pythagoras, you don't think Pythagoras was a thing? So the Pythagorean theorem.
What do you mean was a thing? Pythagoras' theorem is a concept, it's not a thing. There's a clear distinction between things and concepts. Things are facts and concepts are values. And values cannot derive solely from a fact. So the sciences are not a fact, they are conceptual.
Yeah. Yeah, but he definitely predated the New Testament because he was like half a century beforehand.
Sure,
Whoops.
But it didn't. It doesn't. But like the greatest scientists on Earth, like Einstein, Newton, etc., they all still had their faith. They didn't find a law with the scientific method and then said, "Oh, I don't need God anymore." They still had faith in God.
No, Einstein.
Agency doesn't compete with mechanism. Agency doesn't compete with mechanism and law.
No, Einstein was his idea of God was the natural laws of physics. He believed in the God of Spinoza, basically Spinoza's God, who just believed that physics were what he called God. It's a very atheistic view. It's very well documented over Spinoza's life. Now, you're right with Sir Isaac Newton. He was a very, very devout Christian. He also practiced alchemy, which meant that he was trying to turn lead into gold and probably poisoned himself with mercury in the attempt. Just because you are smart in one area doesn't mean you are correct about everything.
I agree. Nobody knows the answers to everything, and to try and use logic as a tool to explain everything is using logic illogically. Yeah, like logic isn't a tool designed to explain the meaning of everything.
How do I use it to explain the meaning of everything? I don't understand that. How am I doing... Like, if I say, hey, something's logically possible, how does that explain the meaning of it?
No, I'm not. I'm saying God is an explanation for the meaning of everything. However, attempting to use logic... I'm not saying you are. I'm saying anyone who attempts What part of the world you in? Because there seems to be a huge breakdown in English and communication. Like, I don't know what type of bastardized English you're using, man. But I'm an Englishman from England. I know my language better than most, especially those overseas that mean.
Well, you're not talking a lot of sense. And I speak with people from all over the world. Yeah. I mean,
you're borrowing my language.
No, it's my language.
Yeah. Wow. I'm an Englishman in England.
So you think because you're English that you're the only person that should be able to use English? Is that what you're saying?
That's a bit of a straw man. When did I say that?
Well, you said you're borrowing my language. Like, do you own it? Is this?
Yes. I'm a native Englishman.
Okay. Well, I think we've gotten to the point where
my native tongue.
I think we've gotten to the point where, you know, if somebody is claiming that I'm stealing his language or borrowing his language, I think we've gotten to the point where you're out of arguments, quite frankly. This has been.
No, I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is whatever language you're using to misconstrue my arguments and straw man.
I'm not.
Right, yeah, it's like a broken, bastardized version of
I'm
English.
not.
I don't understand why
you're the one who's dropping stuff off. I talk about logical possibility. You're saying illogical. It's a completely different meaning, and you're the one that's dropping these words and basically trying to use it as a shortcut for the existence of God, and it doesn't get you there. Just saying it's illogical to not believe in God because it's logically possible. That is a non sequitur. That has been what you have been saying.
This is what I'm saying. This is why I'm saying you're using English in a bastardized form.
This will be up. People can watch it and hear you. People can watch it and hear you, EB3. Like, they'll be able to hear. Yeah, I have no problem with that whatsoever.
You've strawmanned my arguments so many fucking times, I've lost count.
Okay, well, I mean, I've tried to represent them accurately. I've even steel-manned a couple of times. But you have dropped possibility off something again and again and again in order to say that it's illogical to believe that a God does not exist. You have.
No, right, again, this is what I mean. This is what you don't get it, do ya? If an aspect of life is logical, then whoever claims that aspect of life, can't exist or doesn't exist or
doesn't exist,
you're doing it again.
I'm agreeing with you.
Or claims the affirmative. Right, listen, shut the fuck up.
If you keep swearing at me, I'm going to go and you will never get another debate.
Run away then. Run away. I've already dealt with you as far as I'm concerned. You can go whenever you want.
So if an aspect of life
is logical.
Yeah.
If an aspect of life is logical.
Logically possible.
Anyone that claims... If an aspect of life is logical...
Logically possible.
Which means...
Logically possible.
It doesn't matter...
It does matter. It does matter. Possibility versus actuality is important.
Why? I know it is. But
I'll write it down
then. In this logical equation, its actual existence is irrelevant, and that's why I say you're failing to use English coherently, right? Yeah. If the cat is on the mat, it cannot be true that the cat is not on the mat. If an aspect of life is logical, then it cannot be true that it is illogical, right? Yeah. Therefore, God's existence is logical. It doesn't mean, right? Yeah, that proves God's existence. What it means is anyone that tries to say God doesn't exist or God does exist purely based on their emotions, right? Yeah, are acting illogically.
No, that's not what I said. You again dropped the possibility. You just said if something in life is logical, and that's not what I said. I said it's logically possible. Then disagreeing or say it doesn't exist is illogical. Now let's take the cat on the mat. If the cat being on the mat is logically possible, does that mean the cat is actually on the mat?
No.
So could it be logical? Hang on. Let me follow up. Could it be logical to say the cat is not on the mat?
Say that again, sorry.
If it's logically possible that the cat is on the mat, and it's logically possible that it's not, are you then, if you see that, hey, the cat isn't there, is it logical to say that the cat is not on the mat if you have evidence that you think it isn't?
Right. If it's logically
Answer the
possible
question.
that
Answer the
cat-
question.
I'm answering the question. If it is logically possible that the cat is on the mat, then anyone who tries to say that it's illogical for the cat not to be on the mat is acting irrationally, unreasonable, and illogically.
So you've
Right?
changed it
If
again.
the existence of God, let me bounce off that now because I answered it. If the existence of God is logically possible, anyone that tries to say that God's existence is illogical, right? Yeah, or God doesn't exist, like the affirmative, or God does exist, the affirmative, right? Yeah, are acting illogically. Just because I agree with you. Just because it's logically possible doesn't mean it is. So those that claim categorically that something is purely based on this logical possibility are acting illogically, and those on the opposite side of the spectrum that say it isn't categorically are also acting illogically. It cannot be true that God's existence is logical and also God's existence is illogical. Both cannot be true at the same time.
So the problem is that's not a contrary. You're basically taking a different position. You've changed what you've said. You've said if the cat, it's logically possible that the cat is on the mat, then it is logical to say that it is not there, because that is a possibility as well. Both are logically possible. If you say that it's logically possible that God exists and it's logically possible that he doesn't exist, you're now saying it's illogical to say that he doesn't exist. And that is wrong. That if you put something else in there, you are absolutely and utterly wrong. You are changing the parameters of what it is. And you're fluctuating between it's logically impossible and it does not exist, right? It's illogical to say that it does exist. It does not exist. And those are two different things. You are absolutely lost in the source.
If you add existence into the equation, right? Yeah, then you can add non-existence as well into the exact and equal and opposite. If it is logical that God exists, then it is illogical to claim that God doesn't exist.
Not logically possible.
Or if you add existence, right. If you add existence into the equation, right, yeah, then it's synonymous. The equation, the logical equation doesn't change. It doesn't matter if you add God's existence in there or not. I don't mind using either and or. Is it logically possible that God the Creator exists? I'm using both there, possible and exists. If it's true that it is logically possible for God to exist, then it's illogical to say that God cannot possibly exist.
I never said that. Is it logically possible that God does not exist?
No.
Why? What rule of logic does it
violate?
Because
it is logically because what?
What rule of logic does it violate?
God operates outside the realms of logic and reason.
So when you're sort of like you've been trapped in this, well, of course it's logically possible that a God doesn't exist. There's no violation of any of the laws of logic, law of identity, the law of non-contradiction, law of excluded middle. It violates none of them. But having said that to you, is it logically possible that the God does not exist just as it is logically possible that he does? You've said, well, it just doesn't apply to him. Special pleading. Wow, that's incredible.
But unlike you, I have first-hand knowledge of the Christ. Listen, I have first-hand knowledge of the Christ.
It's irrelevant.
So I know to you, right? Yeah, but
to
my
logic,
position, right? Yeah,
to logical possibility, it's irrelevant.
Logic isn't designed to deal with the God issue. I think
we've gotten to the point.
Using logic, you attempting to use logic to deny or prove the existence of God is fallacious.
Well, I don't think it's logical to believe in a God, just for the record. I think that's very illogical. There's no evidence.
You've already admitted that it's logical for God to exist.
No,
You've already admitted that it's
no, I said it's logically possible.
I've got you on this live.
Why are you dropping out words of my sentence and then pretending like you're some kind of hero? Like I said, logical possibility.
If it's logically
could you
possible,
please not lean into your microphone and yell at me?
It's logically possible for God to exist, right? Yeah,
Okay,
then it's
I
illogical
think
to claim that he doesn't.
Yeah, I think we've come to the end of this show because
Run off now.
Your
I've
refusal
dealt with you as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I know. Beat your chest some more and be a proud little boy. I think that we've all experienced now that when he gets trapped by logic...
Fuck off now.
I was supposed to have an outro, sir.
Well, go on then.
Are you a liar? Are you a liar? Did you promise an outro and lie?
Which came first, your offer to me for the 13th?
Could you
or
not
MDD?
lean into your microphone and act like a child, please?
Don't try and tell me what to do. You're not the boss of me, dickhead.
You do realise this is being recorded and broadcast on the internet, right? You don't care?
Right. Which came first? Which came first? Your offer to me for the 13th or MDDs?
Well, MDD rescheduled something that I already had booked with them, yeah. And I offered the 13th. Yeah, I offered the 13th and said, hey, we've got to work out the details before I commit to it. And you think that me just saying, hey, are you available this date is a firm acquiescence to debate because you are a petulant child that apparently cannot act like a professional.
No. It's no big deal to me to pick up a microphone and
so
debate
my
some
outro,
shit.
what we saw here is basically when we get to logical possibility and impossibility, what EB3 has to do is drop off the possibility and say, hey, illogical and logical. He's got to misconstrue what it is. I really highly recommend to look up what people mean by possibility as opposed to actuality, because actuality is not possibility and possibility is not actuality. It is possible that I could be anywhere else having the time of my life right now. In actuality, that is not true. So when we say these things and we say, hey, it is logically possible that a God exists, conversely, it's logically possible that a God doesn't exist. That in no way gets you to either the God existing or the God not existing. It doesn't have any bearing on it. All it does is overcome that first small hurdle, which sort of says that illogical things cannot even be possible, like a married bachelor or a square circle. That is a violation of logic and therefore it cannot exist. All things that people have posited, like fairies, unicorns, gnomes, all of these things are logically possible, but it doesn't mean they exist in actuality. And all we have heard tonight is this man say, well, it's logically possible, so it's illogical to claim that it doesn't exist, which is not true. It's only illogical to claim that it's impossible for it to exist. But as nobody's doing that, that's a straw man of my position, which I always say, God is logically possible, but so what? So are unicorns, so is aliens, so is, me being in the other room, which is obviously not true. Just because it's logically possible doesn't mean it actually is. And it doesn't matter, this whole temporal, oh, well, that was before we actually reached the present. It doesn't matter. All that has to happen is some possible world where the laws of logic are violated, which obviously someone not being born or me being in the other room does not violate. I at least gave some evidence for why I believe that there is no God, and it's based upon logic and reasoning and the law of induction. Yeah, there's problems with the law of induction, but we use it every day. It seems very reliable and a proper way to find things out. Everybody uses it because they have to. So I think it's more than valid. What I haven't heard is any reason besides someone had a vision. Great. Fantastic. I'm not getting a vision. I've asked to see God. I've called on Jesus, really hoping that he would come, and nothing happened because I'm not going to delude myself into thinking something has happened when it hasn't. And there's no reason why I should lie and say, oh yeah, I saw Jesus too, when it didn't happen. And if you want to say, oh, well, you weren't doing it right or something, go for it. But, when is it that we need to do things in a certain way in order to get the evidence of... No, we should have, if one person does this, they will see this thing. And I must admit, people have done this and seen Muhammad as well. So what does that say? All of this is just nonsense. I've been abused. There's always a bit of back and forth in debate. We kind of accept it. But when someone's hurling names and acting like a child, from the very start, it was just, well, you said you're available this date, so where a go and you're running away and stuff. No, nothing of the sort. I promised a debate. I delivered a debate. You're incredibly hard to work with. You are unreasonable. You are petulant. You are throwing names and things around. And then you wonder why no one will debate you. Yeah, they're obviously scared, mate, because nothing was scary today. And I want to thank the moderators for their time. And yeah, I don't think I'll be debating you again because you are just awful.
Here's my closing, if you're brave enough to stay for it. No one was an appeal to emotion there. Like I've been doing this for over 20 years. I've debated hundreds and if not thousands of people, right? Yeah, and I've got equally as many running scared from me. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I understand why freshlings like you give 2-week dates for a debate and then like, oh, but I wasn't actually dead sure on that day. I've got to arrange stuff and everything because you're newbies, you're freshlings, you're new to this. It takes 10 seconds to pick up a microphone and debate something, mind to mouth, if you're that skilled. I was ready to cater for your feelings and however you like to conduct yourself in these type of spaces. I hear people like you chatting shit in debates, and then I challenge you to see if you can withstand challenge. I think I've proven that you can't. Atheism, as I've demonstrated tonight, right, yeah, is a religious following like any other. He is just as religious as any Muslim or Christian or Catholic or individual practicing voodoo. The way he uses logic is illogical as well. He's got a bastardized version of English from Australia, some secondary cast off fucking version, right? Yeah, he doesn't understand the words that he is using, because in the logical equation, if something is logically possible, then it's illogical to claim otherwise. It doesn't matter what extra word you add into that, existence, God, or otherwise, right? Yeah, if it is logical, then it's illogical to assume the contrary, regardless of what position it is, right? Yeah, and your feelings on the matter. Now, I think that's roughly about it. I'm not sure if there's anything else I want to say. As far as all the name calling and stuff like that, you can call me what you want. You've acted bad faith throughout this debate as soon as it got to and fro. You were straw man in my positions, right? Yeah, not understanding the words that were coming out of my mouth. You were trying to obfuscate for your own audience because you were backed into an intellectual corner you can't get out of, right? Yeah, God is an answer for everything. So is the universe and the Big Bang and all that, if you want to go down a more scientific route rather than the spiritual one. But God is an answer, the creator for everything, all of life on earth. You want evidence, whereas I only have to look outside, see the blade of grass or myself in a mirror. There's evidence of God the creator. But as far as I think that's about it, really.
All right.
Again,
Hey, okay, hey, yeah, no, I wanted out of there. That guy was an absolute fool. I'm sorry, I didn't really get set up today. It was just he was hassling me by email, and then I decided he's like, oh, I can do it now, and I've got a moderator right now, kind of thing, and I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do it right now. What an absolute tool. You know, I don't. I really don't know what he didn't understand about what I was saying. It was this really odd thing that he was trying to thing. Yeah, that was rough to it was rougher to be in, to be honest with you. Just absolutely rough. The whole thing of logical possibility is that it's different than the actuality, and I don't know how else I could have explained it, and I have completely lost my super chat, so give me 1 second and I am going to viewer activity, maybe? Yeah. So if I capture this, sorry, my system wasn't even set up, like, seriously. Live streaming? Yeah. Okay. Oh. I don't know how to make this smaller. No, that's not it. No, that's still not it. Yay, there we go. Awesome. We're doing it live. We're doing it live. Hang on. Where am I going to put this? Where Hello. Okay. I have questions for each theist. Well, you know what? I was not hanging around for question time after that fucking debacle, to be honest with you. That was absolutely terrible. You know, it's really weird that I get to the end and I'm like, oh, you're name calling and stuff when he's like swearing at me and things. And then he's like, oh, yeah, you name called. No, I didn't. I said your argument was bad, not you yourself. Hanko Flamio for $5. I have questions for each. How do we know... How do we know about something that isn't sensible? Okay, so basically, you know, empiricism. But yeah, I'm sorry, Hank. I wasn't hanging around for that guy. He's terrible. Yeah, I'm not going to be debating that man again. Like, seriously, it's sort of like, all of these people are afraid of me. No, you're a prick. You're an absolute prick, and you should really stop doing what it is that you're doing and act a bit professional. Oh, God. If we equivocate idols and gods, would there be gods? Yes. I mean, idols are a thing. Do you mean like little stone idols kind of thing? Or like, I'm not sure what you meant by idols, Hank. If you sort of clarify in the chat, if you just mean idols as in things we look up to, like, you know, sports idol, or, you know, I have an idol that is, you know, you know, my boss is my idol, or my father is my idol. Well, yeah, but at that point, you've really reduced gods to just everyday objects. You know, which is fine with me. If that's what you want to call a god, you can call a god that. But I wouldn't personally. Damn, I need to find somehow the readerships. Ooh, maybe I can look at the last few that come out. Yeah, I know, it was so, and sort of the fact that he sort of was, it's like, could you stop leaning into the microphone and raising your voice? Like, it seriously is unprofessional. Like, why can't you just have a conversation? But that whole thing, he was dropping the possibility and just saying, hey, if God is logical. Never said that. I don't think God is logical. Certainly not the Christian God. I don't think it's logical. It's logically possible, but I don't think it's logical to believe in it, because there's no evidence, there's no justification for it. Yeah, and that's sort of a real, like, you'd think that somebody who's been on YouTube for so long would be aware that people have, you know, implants, and people have things that they you know, not to ASMR their ears, you know, like, please don't do that. That's not right. Sorry, AJ, that sucks. What am I doing? I've got distracted. Yeah, that's annoying. You know, and sort of the trollish behaviour of, if I don't agree to debate, I'm running and everyone's afraid of me. You know, this chest beating stuff is just so bad. Like, why would you do that? I'm trying to find out who got the readerships, who got the memberships that Max V so generously gave out. Do I have it in this window? No, I don't. I will find out. I will frigging find out. No, that's not it. I'm not 100% sure. I'm so sorry, Max V. I will try to find out. I think it was Vincent van Gogh, Dave Bearfly, Endora, the Trib One, and Jefferson Spatchcock. I think those are the people. Well, they are now. I'm sorry if I got them wrong, but I think those are the people. I think those are the people. Thank you, Max V. Really appreciate it. Winner chicken dinner for everybody. Please enjoy your emotes and other benefits. And let's see. What else we got? We got something else from some other person. Oh, you gifted 2 lots. That's why they're all coming up on the same date. Max V, you golden god. You golden god. Okay, there's 2 lots. So the others were... Austin Sims, Gregory Nitsky, Mighty Quinn, and Tyler West and John Miller. Sorry guys, I'm a bit out of sorts, you know, like, yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree, Andrew. I 100% agree. I think that if you do have to, you know, no king has to declare themselves king. I learnt that from Game of Thrones, in fact. No king ever has to declare themselves king. You just know. Balls to bones, you just know. Yeah, but what do we really hear as evidence? Well, if you call honestly out to Jesus, you'll have a vision of him. That's it. That's the amazing evidence for God. Wow. I don't know. Are you guys convinced? I'm convinced. I'm convinced that, you know, he probably had a lot of substance in his system, quite frankly. But, yeah. I don't know why I did that. Yeah, thanks, Chrissy. I really appreciate it. I don't know. I'm feeling a bit insomniac after that. You know, just a bit thingo. Yeah. Thank you so much for your support, though. I'm going to leave his shitty server. But, you know, I mean, I'm always complaining that I don't get enough debates, so, you know, I can't complain, I guess. It's just now I can complain about the quality. Like, that's really where I'm at. Yeah. It's the pre-sup way. He didn't formally construct the argument in form of tag, but he's very close to it in the disposition for it. No, I think it's more... I don't think it's tag. I don't think it's the transcendent argument for God. A transcendental, argument for God. I don't think it's that one. I think it's more like an ontological argument. Or it's close to... It's almost... And yeah, last Frybender, I kind of agree. It's kind of sitting between a... transcendental argument and an ontological argument. Like, if God exists in some possible world, then he exists in all possible worlds kind of thing, right? Like, it's kind of sitting near there, or at least he's trying to shortcut that possible world into this actual world. And it you know, without the follow-up arguments of the ontological argument, it's just a non sequitur. God exists in some possible world, therefore he exists in this world. Like, it doesn't follow. There's nothing there. And the whole fact that he had to drop possibility and then insert, like, it's illogical to deny God's existence, that is just tragic. Like, seriously, you've dropped possibility and gone into actuality with no reason whatsoever, no justification. And that's a problem, because we're just talking about possibility. My favourite part of that debate, my favourite part, was when I said, is it logically possible that God doesn't exist? And he went, logic doesn't apply to God. That was my favourite part. That was so hilarious. That was absolutely hilarious, because he obviously realised, oh, I've got to admit the logical possibility of the non-existence of God, and that means that under my own arguments that it's illogical to argue against the existence, against the non-existence of God. Therefore, logic overboard. Like, I'm sorry, it was hilarious. You know, like, oh, that's okay, Trustee Ape. I don't mind. I mean, he basically said, oh, you know, he's an atheist, he's an agnostic kind of thing, and he's wrong. Like, he's just wrong. I'm not, you know, I'm an atheist under the colloquial terms of, you know, agnostic atheist, and the sense it's usually used almost everywhere. But philosophy of religion says an agnostic is that they take a neutral stance, and an atheist believes no God exists. They take the hard atheist stance, and I'm you know, I'm an atheist in both, so it doesn't really worry me. You know, I take the hard atheist position because that's what I believe, and I have arguments to back it up. Hey Robin, so good to see you. But that ends. Someone read Steve McRae's paper. Look, it's used that way in philosophy of religion, but like most words, it's polysemous. It just, you know, the stuff that this guy was saying, that science comes from the Bible. Like, seriously, does he not realize that the word science was, like, put in by the KJV? Like, it wasn't science in the, like, it wasn't science like we know it, and there's this, you know, that's the New Testament, and, you know, Archimedes and stuff predated that. They all did. All of the great thinkers, Archimedes, Eratosthenes, like all of these great Greek thinkers were pre New Testament that he got it out of. So it's just like, wow, dude. I don't know where he got that from. I don't know where he got half the things from, but wow. I want to give a big thank you to Max. You didn't have to do that, but I love it. And I love all of you being here. I am going to turn in because it is 12:30 and I am a cranky boy by now. Yeah, I know, Yudif. It's kind of, yeah. I met Steve McRae once. Hell, I co-hosted with him once on his show. I can't remember what it was. It was a Non Sequitur show. Yes, I have co-hosted an episode of Non Sequitur show. Yes. I didn't know who he was. I had no idea. I don't know anything. You guys should know this. You know, I don't even English properly, apparently. I didn't realize so many people had difficulty understanding me. It's wild, right? But yeah, like a lot of it was you know, I don't know. It just didn't fit with what I felt. Like, it was a lot of sort of, you know, accusations and drama, and I just went, yeah, I'm not into drama. I really don't like it that much, you know. So this whole dramatic thing isn't, you know. Well, that will be up on the internet for all time, you know. I wonder if he'll watch it and feel differently about it, you know. I wonder if I'll watch it and feel differently about it. I got to do that. But thank you so much, everybody. It's been wild. That was an impromptu. Thanks, Chrissy. Yeah, look, I do use Australianisms occasionally. Didgeridoo. Good on you, Cobber. I can do Australian, all right? Don't make me. I will Aussify your ass. I really will. I will. I will. You watch. I've got a whole lexicon of Australianisms. Yeah, if you watch this, you're going to get... Yeah, I agree, Andrew. But so lovely to see you. I'm going to turn in... This was wild. I probably got to do more stuff like this. Just rock into Discord and just arc it up with you people. You're wrong because I'm Australian. I have been told that before. Hey, you know, we are all criminals after all, Yudif. Absolutely. All right, people. I don't have the outro prepared because I didn't know I was doing this, like, a couple of hours ago. So, yeah, take care, everybody. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to each other. And, you know, be professional when you're in a professional setting. Be professional. At least try. To be professional. Yeah. Night, everybody. Bye-bye.